out in the shop today. I wasn't planning on doing any filming because the only thing on my list was slapping in the windshield bar. Now that I got the windshield scabbed in, welded the windshield bar back in, threw some paint on it, cleaned up the interior, got it all ready, and was thinking, sweet, started to go wheeling. The second I thought that, it was, oh, well, now let me think about list number 2, which is all of the things that you want to do, but you don't need to do. So they're just on list number 2, but now that the rig's ready to go wheeling, well, there's a couple things I should probably do. Don't have to do, but you know how it goes. Well, since I was a bonehead when I mounted my cooler for my full hydro steering, I mounted it over there, and my E-Fan is over here. So let's pop the hood off and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And the reason I figured I'd film this video today is I keep seeing people online asking what's the best E-Fan, and I don't care about best, but I always recommend Ford Taurus. The Ford Taurus E-Fan. This one's a 2-speed. You get it out of a Taurus early 90s, and it's like $40 on the wrecker. So let me pop the hood here, and I'll tell you a bit more about the fan and why I'm super stoked on it, and works really well to keep this big heavy girl cool-ish. Let's pop the hood. Okay, well, a lot of you probably haven't seen under here. It's a Scabby TBI V6. It's got the aggressive racing cams in it and headers on it, so it actually honks pretty good. Here's my PSC steering reservoir. Hose runs through into the cooler, and that's over here. Here's my E-Fan over here. I'm thinking that I will move the fan over to this side to get a little more cold air on my power steering res. I don't want to move that onto the other side because then I got too long of a hose, and that's a drag. So a couple of reasons I went with this fan. I was having heating issues with this thing. We drive real slow in the woods, so you don't get a lot of airflow, but we're using a lot of revs, so motor was heating up a lot. Clutch fan takes up a huge amount of space, so one of the good things with the Taurus E-Fan is it's only 4 3/4 of an inch deep, so you could see how tight I got it to the motor there, which is good because I actually spaced my rad back so I could fit my 8274 without having to build a big front porch of a bumper. So space in the rad back, I didn't have enough room for the clutch fan, but $40 from the wrecker, and this thing is badass. They come out of the 1990 to 95 3.8 liter Ford Taurus, and 4 3/4 of an inch deep, something like 2000 CFM on low and 3200 CFM on high. They really blow. They really suck for $40. You got to run a big 60 amp fuse, and then I got 2 relays. I got a switch inside. It's just 3 wires, and I could put a temp sender on it, but I just have a high and a low and an off switch, which I've been meaning to turn to just a low and a high, because when do I ever really want it off? And I always forget to turn it on. Here she is in all her glory. Pulled it off. You can see my homemade brackets there. So what I'm essentially going to do is swap them. Or move these holes over and then build something off this side to move it over 2 inches and get a bit more air on that cooler. So oh yeah, and this was in the back of my rig. Here's my snapped knuckle. There's my problem. Away she goes. So I'm gonna get to modifying these brackets, move this fan over a bit, but yeah, there it is. Nice low pro fan. Anytime anybody's ever asking about E-Fans, I always say can't go wrong for 40 bucks. It gets the job done and blows as much as expensive brand name fan and low profile. Perfect for guys like me with low budget but high performance needs. So stoked on the fan. Recommend it for anyone. 90 to 95 Ford Taurus, the 3.8 liters. I got it mocked up in there. I'm gonna have to find some better bolts because these are some super random screws. But you can see I moved it over this much. It's getting a bit closer to the power steering pump, but you can see where the shroud is now. It's gonna blow a heck of a lot more air at this thing. I'm thinking about moving the mount over and straightening this up as well to get it a little more in front there, but I think even what I already did is gonna be way better. So pull it out one last time, do a couple more stitches because I just got it tacked there, and then I gotta find some bolts and bolt it back up. So not bad. Oh, and here for some of you, this is a York air compressor, AC compressor out of an old Toyota. I use it for an onboard air setup. Relay on the firewall, and I threw another belt on it because I don't have an AC belt, AC on this. So I got the AC tensioner, ran that, fabbed up a bracket for it. One of the things you need to know about a York is it's an oiler. So the way it normally works, it pumps coolant through it and keeps it oiled and cool. You're not pumping any coolant, but it does pump oil out of it because you're putting oil in it instead of you're putting compressor oil instead of coolant in it. But it will eventually pump coolant or oil out. So that's why I've got this oil separator here, water separator from tool store. This is for a small air compressor. Runs through here. There's a gauge on the front of this. You can see, and it's about half full. Once it gets full enough, I crack it and it gets plumbed right back into the pump. So I never really starve the pump that much. Doesn't pump a huge amount of oil, but it does pump enough that you have to be aware, or your pump is going to eventually run out of oil and you're going to seize the thing. So this is a pressure switch I bought from, I think it was a company called Kirby, and then the airline off of that. So this flips the pump on at 0 psi and off at 120 psi, so it doesn't just explode my air tank or blow hoses off. So you kind of need one of those if you're going to run an onboard air setup. But works slick. This thing gives so much air. I use my rear bumper as the air tank, and works mint. I can fill tires, use air tools, whatever on the trail, and another junkyard part, and a little bit of fab work. Well, for once, an hour-long project actually took me an hour. I got the fan bolted in there, found some little spacers and some long bolts, kind of all half-assed because it's just random stuff I have laying around my shop. But did that, and then I also found a piece of steel and spaced this out an inch to get it a little bit closer to the fan, which is now over 3 inches. So should be a heck of a lot better to keep the cooler for the full hydro steering a little bit cooler, and keep the pump from whining. Because now it's not very long into the day that my steering starts whining. So this way I will be hopefully keeping a little bit cooler, and gonna have this thing back on the trail real soon. So stoked to check some random little things off the list, and it's pretty much time to go wheeling. Got to get that trailer fixed. Right on, boys.